Right, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about bad attitudes versus good attitudes. And it's something I posted up on my Instagram at Dean Barton Real earlier on in the week, or last week, I think it was, just about bad attitudes. And sometimes you're going to come across people with just attitudes that fucking stink of piss. And other times you're going to meet people in life and their attitude is just amazing. And it's just weird that sometimes it's people with bad attitudes who've got the most in front of them and the most stuff in front of them and the most opportunities in front of them, and their attitude still fucking stinks. And then sometimes you can meet someone picking up rubbish in the street and they've got the best attitude in the world, haven't got a care in the world, and they're just a really positive, nice, decent person to hang around. So attitudes are ingrained in the person, and they're so important to any form of business, any form of dealing with clients, and actually dealing with stuff when it goes wrong as well. So attitude is so important, and it's something that I think is really important to talk about. The game is so easy to win because 90% of people have a fucking awful attitude and outlook towards things. So if you can just put yourself in a camp, and hopefully you are listening to this, I already know if you listen to a podcast about business, about success, money, growing a business, you've got a better attitude than 99% of people. You don't listen to stuff like this, and you don't invest your time into development and learning and all that type of stuff unless you've got a good attitude there. But some people are sort of half and half. And, I've dealt with a lot of good attitudes over the years. I've dealt with a lot of bad attitudes over the years. And some standout ones for me, is to give you guys a bit of a story, is apprentices is the easiest one to pick off. And the first thing that I think of when I think of attitudes is that you've all probably experienced this as well. At some point, some sort of apprentices or younger generation, and their attitudes just fucking stink. They want everything given to them. They want picking up. They want all the money in the world. They don't want to work. They want to sit on their phone. They want to eat fucking shit. They want to sleep in the van on the way to jobs. They want to fucking toss it off. They want to phone in sick. They care about football at the weekends. They care about buying the latest designer clothes. Very, very common. Not all of them by any means. There's some massive flip sides, and I'll balance that view off, because I've also had an apprentice where he was the most positive, hardest working lad going. Vegan guy, and I'm not saying that as anything like something against him. I've got nothing against vegans, trust me. But he was like, he had morals, he had a great attitude, and what he believed in and what he cared about, that's what he did. So he had something I'd never seen before. He had vegan work boots. I didn't even know you could get that, because he didn't want leather on his boots, because he cared about it, and that's what he was passionate about. And he just had decent morals, and what was important to him. He had the attitude of like, well, that's what I do. So I don't eat like everyone else. I don't eat with everyone else. I don't eat meat. I don't care if people take the piss out of me. I don't care if people think I'm quirky. And I thought that was so great to experience and see from a younger person, because equally the pressure is massively on younger people to conform and be like everyone else and be in the cool camp. Especially apprentices, they come from school, and they're used to being the kids at the back of the school and that sort of stuff, and being in the cool gang. But when it comes to going into the work environment, they're fucked, because they don't get it that you've got to pull your socks up and actually get on and graft. And I just wanted to balance that off with going that there is still the two camps out there. There are good people with good attitudes out there in apprentices. But as I look back and look through all the people that I've sort of employed and had in the business and come across and done deals with and done just general business transactions with, you either meet people in their 50s with great attitudes or really bad attitudes. And you'll know this yourself. You can have someone who's technically very good, but every time you ask them to do something, it's like, oh, well, it's not my fucking job. I shouldn't be doing this. I can't be asked for this. Do you know what I mean? Just general bad attitudes, and people are everywhere, and you just can't have these people in your business, And I've always found it weird that sometimes you can have someone who's on a lot less money, a lot less experience practically on paper in terms of years, or maybe delivery of doing specific works, or handling stuff that just comes up, whether that's dealing with a customer or dealing with labour or subcontractors. And every once in a while you come across someone who's on paper less qualified, less experienced, and just overall don't have the value that you would perceive that person to have over someone else who is more experienced and got more years under their belt. But the attitude is night and day. And the person that's less experienced has got a really positive can-do attitude, speaks to people nicely, brings a buzz, brings an attitude of happiness, and a nice person to be around, versus the older person who's a miserable bastard. No one wants to ask them what the fuck to do or question what they're doing, because you're going to get a fucking horrible negative response. People avoid phoning that person or asking for help or reaching out. And it's just mad that every once in a while you get someone who's completely fresh, and then the person who delivers the best is the younger, cheaper, more effective person who hasn't got as much experience and hasn't got as much as technical knowledge, but because their attitude's great, they get more out of people, they get more done, and they actually deliver a better job, and they actually make the company more money. And I think it's really important as a business owner, as you're going to be an entrepreneur in the construction industry listening to this, is spotting that and really seeing the people with the attitudes that are good and the people with the attitudes that are bad, and really understanding where you really want your business to go, because you want people with good attitudes. And it's not just staff, sometimes it's business owners. I speak to a lot of business owners now. I get a lot of messages from people on Instagram. It's at Dean Barton Real, if you don't follow me already. And it is amazing that sometimes I will start a conversation with someone because I want to form a relationship with them. I'm an avid networker. I believe in networking massively with the right people. It's something you should always be doing as a business owner. I certainly myself try and meet at least 2 people face to face in any given week, and I will speak to probably over 100 people a week over messages and DMs and stuff, and actually building relationships. And it's amazing to me that sometimes I'll start a conversation with a fellow business owner, and putting it exactly how it is, maybe they're a lot younger and a lot earlier and newer to business, and I'm giving you an actual live example, and I said, look, we should have a conversation, we should have a phone call, and they hit me back with, let me check my diary, I'll get back to you. And then that's it goes cold. And you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? As a business owner, how the fuck are you conducting yourself in that manner? Because it's just an attitude of like, oh, I'm busy, or seniority, or fucking status, like a fucking bullshit status play people are trying to play. And it really fucking winds me up that there's attitude on other business owners that it's just not necessary, and it's just a fucking real bad habit. Because you as a business owner should have the best attitude. You should be laying the foundation of, my attitude's fucking unbreakable. My attitude is, I'm positive as fuck, I'm really good to people, I deliver, I do what I say I'm going to do. When things are good, I'm fucking good, and I'm respectful, and I'm not an arsehole, and I don't become an egotistical like maniac. But when things are bad, I'll fucking roll up my sleeves and do what's required, and I'll muck in, and I'm pushing this team forward. These are the attitudes you want as business solid people. And if you as the owner, if you haven't got the right attitude, if you've got a bad attitude, that's all going to filter down into your staff. You're going to morph and blend people into being more like you if you've got the wrong attitude. So attitude is so fucking important, and it just winds me up massively when I see a business owner with a bad attitude, because I know they're fucked. I know they're fucked. Like, at some point their business is going to be fucked because their attitude fucking stinks. You've got to have the best attitude. It's got to be a level 10 as an owner. What you think is a good attitude, you need to raise that way, way past that and have the best attitude, even when things are going really against you, because it does happen in business. It's not all fucking sunshine and rainbows by any means. Doesn't matter what scale or size you get to, you're going to be dealing with problems the whole way through. And the quicker your growth is, the more problems you're going to be experiencing. So you've got to have a great attitude to get through it. Otherwise you're fucked, and you've got to convey that down. And if you don't, you just go and have a business that's built on stilts, and it's going to be fucked. People are not going to work for you. You're not going to be the best leader in your business. You're not going to build a team that's going to be a really high performing team that you can rely on, because you set the standard of your attitude, and throughout the board, everyone's working on the same page of like, that's not the attitude we have around here. Like, I know things have gone wrong, but we don't do that around here. We don't accept that around here. We do what we can, and we control the controllables, and we do the right stuff by people, even if it might hurt us at the time. That's an attitude that you can't train. So I think what the purpose of this episode is going, right, what's the principles of attitude, and then spotting those good and bad attitudes, is that number one, you've got to have the principle of checking yourself, like I say, and is your attitude a problem? Do you need to work on your own attitude and your own outlook to be a better leader and a better business person? Because if it does, don't even fucking worry or complain or criticise anyone else's attitude if your own attitude fucking stinks. You cannot criticise anyone unless you're a fucking expert in it yourself. Unless you've got credentials, unless you've got absolute certainty and backbone of like, I nail this, my attitude is fucking immense. So then that gives you think of the word, but that gives you the credibility to criticize other people's attitudes. And that's level one principle for me. You cannot criticize what you don't master yourself. If you're not absolutely 100% solid on something yourself, regardless of whether it's attitude or whether it's asking someone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself, you just can't fucking operate in that way. And principle number 2 is hiring for attitude over skill. And obviously, look, when you're recruiting staff and people, they have to have a base level skill set. You can't, I don't mean just hire purely on attitude, because you can meet someone who's got the best attitude, but bless them, they've got no experience and they just haven't got the skill sets required to do the job. But what I mean by this principle is that if you're arguing the toss between two people in a recruitment decision where one of them has got slightly better skill, but their attitude is questionable, and you've got someone whose attitude is amazing, their skill is a little bit less, and they maybe haven't got as much as experience as the other person, but the attitude will carry them through, I would hire for the attitude over the skill every single time. Because you can work with good attitude. A good attitude will develop the skills. A good attitude will learn and be moldable and become the master and the best at that position. Whereas someone with the best amount of skills with a shit attitude is never going to become a level 10 employee and a master of what they do, because their attitude is going to weigh them down. So I think that's a really good guiding principle as a business owner for people. And this is not just about recruitment, it's about who you do business with. It's clients as well. What's their attitude like? You know, you don't just choose clients over the potential value that you could get now, but they're actually going to be a real ball ache to work with. What's the attitude of those people? Who are you dealing with day to day? Suppliers as well. Sometimes it's not always best going for the cheapest price on materials, because the attitude of that company stinks. Their delivery is crap. They don't do what they say they're going to do. So it's going to cause you more problems, more headaches later on down the line. It's all about attitudes. It's such a massive variable in people, and you've just got to hire for the attitude over the skill. I believe is going to give you much greater success longer term. And again, it's, you know, hear me say it a lot of times, you've got to be thinking about longer terms, not just looking now, quick wins, looking at attitude of people over time and who those people could become, and the relationships with your suppliers, the relationships with your customers, the relationships with other industry experts, the relationships with consultants or, you know, professionals that you engage with in a business. It's all got to be attitude over skill for me, without a doubt. And then principle number 3 is you've got to remove bad attitudes. And this is easier said than done. You know, we had the experience of this, of someone senior, technically very good, but the attitude just stank. And the problem is when you're in business, you'll know this yourself listening to this, is that people are doing jobs and they're doing a role. It's difficult to get your head around. You need to remove that person, but the question, the elephant in the room is, well, who the fuck does his job? And it is a concern, it is a problem, and it's something you have to really think about, of the knock-on effect in the car crash and the damage if you remove that person. But you just got to remind yourself that if you've got a person with bad attitude within the business, yes, it's going to sting a little bit removing them, and you might have to go through a bit of turbulence as you remove them and as you get them out, but it is what it is. You know, would you rather go through 10 minutes of turbulence to get to the Caribbean destination, or would you rather go, or do you go on a fucking merry-go-round that never gets off and you feel fucking sick because you're just dealing with someone who's got a bad attitude? So you've got to be willing to roll your sleeves up sometimes to deal with these problems. If you've got people in a position in your company but they're actually doing a job, you've got to set a battle plan, and actually maybe you've got to roll your own sleeves up and get involved again in their role, or you've got to recruit someone and out-recruit them and actually bring someone in and have double the expense and then get rid of that person. There's different ways of doing it, and it depends on the role and what they're doing. You know, if it's a very low-level role, it's quite easy to solve. But if it's a senior role, if it's someone who's quite important, they deal with a lot of your clients, they deal with a lot of revenue. You've got to treat that and be a bit more tactful with it, but set a plan of actually getting them out. Because what I found is you just can't change attitude. You can teach skill. You can't change someone's DNA, their attitude and their outlook. And believe it or not, sometimes people need to have something happen to them and to have some shit happen to them in order for their attitude to change. You know, there's a saying that you can't lead a horse to water, but someone said, I read it a few weeks ago and it really sort of resonated with me, is that you can't force a horse to water, but the way to get the horse to the water is make it starving. And what it means is a starving horse will fucking drink piss if it's absolutely starved, dehydrated. And the lesson from that is that sometimes people need to experience this. I'm talking about people with the bad attitudes, of course. Sometimes they need to have some shit thrown in their face to make them realise and actually check themselves. And it's just wrong. It's a human thing that sometimes car crashes have to happen to make people change their outlook. They can't see it ahead of time. There has to be an accident. There has to be a consequence. There has to be a redundancy. There has to be a sacking. There has to be a partner that leaves them to make them realise, you know what, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the dick. And, you know, it's just facts of life. It's just part of life, and it's just not nice. But you will not change someone's bad attitude overnight, and it's something that you've just got to remove them. If you've got bad attitudes around you, you've got bad suppliers, you've got bad staff with the wrong attitudes, and you fucking know it in your gut, but you've been hiding it, you've been brushing it under the carpet because it's the easy thing to do now for where you are in the business today. But you know in your heart of hearts, you know in your gut, longer term, that person is not right for the business. You've got to remove them, and you've got to set a plan for that. And this is the thing, you know, a staff and the attitude thing is that if you were picking a dream team, if you're picking a football team, you'd be picking the Messis of the world, the Ronaldos, the Beckhams. You know, you want level 10 players in your business. And if you know heart of hearts, you've got level 3 players, but you really want a level 10, you've got to assess that and address that and form a plan. And, you know, and a lot of times you can relate business to sport, because a lot of times, you know, a new team starts or a new manager comes in. The first season is all about getting a base level and building that team. The second season might be the development of certain key players, but it might also be the removal of some players and bringing some new players into the business because they've got the right attitudes. And that's the way to outlook it all the time, is when you're owning the business, you've got to have that attitude all the time, going constantly evolving and looking at the team. And it's tough at the top. You know, as the manager, the boss, responsibility's on you. You've got to deliver. So you've got to choose your team wisely. And if you're taking shit at the bottom, you've got people with the wrong attitudes in, you are basically saying that you're willing to have the company, the business, not perform at the best it can because you're accepting those bad attitudes. Because if you accept something on one level, you're denying yourself for something else at another level. If you know you're accepting people with bad attitudes in a business, you are going to be accepting piss poor performance, strained relationships, loss of revenue, lack of revenue, problems, less profit, because you are accepting something. It all filters down. Problems arise they start as little cracks and they develop into bigger problems over time. And that's what you don't want as a business owner. So I hope that in this episode it's woken you up to the importance of attitudes. And number 4, I've missed number 4. You just don't tolerate them. Don't tolerate bad attitudes. If you come across someone that's got a bad attitude, don't even start a relationship with them. Don't even start employment with them. Don't even begin the journey if you spot the bad attitude from the off, because you don't be the nice guy. Don't accept stuff. If you can spot and your gut sees someone's got potentially a bad attitude from the off, do not engage with them. Do not do business with them. Do not employ them. Do not recruit them. Do not have them around what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. Just from the off, don't tolerate it is the biggest lesson, is that you get what you tolerate. And if you don't tolerate it, you won't have that fucking problem. So that's the lesson to learn. And then number 5 is really observe and value good attitudes. Because what I mean by this is that it's easy to understand and spot someone with a good attitude. They walk in the room, it lifts the place up. You want to be around them. Clients like them, staff like them. They're that person. And you'll know in your mind, the people in your business, who those people are. But observe and value them, because it is possible to have a great attitude. But sometimes, luck of life, luck of the draw, things go wrong. Sometimes the job goes wrong. Even though you've got the best people on it, everyone's got a great attitude, sometimes shit just happens and things just go wrong. And I think as a boss and as a leader, you need to observe that and still value that good attitude, and still maybe reward that good attitude, even if things just didn't go the right way for that person or for the business or for the job. Sometimes you need to pat people on the back and just observe and go, do you know what, it didn't go our way this time, but you did your best and you did a great job and you held yourself, you conducted yourself. I'm proud of you, well done. And sometimes just those words of encouragement for people is enough, but maybe you want to go one step further and reward them in a financial position, or take half a day off, and this is just the art of just being really good management, good leadership, and is observing it and valuing it when things maybe haven't gone to plan or things have gone slightly wrong, because it's easy to thank people when things have gone right, but a good boss and a good leader, again, what is it? It's a good attitude. when things go wrong, but you still pat people on the back because they did their part right, and the reason something went wrong was uncontrollable, or it was someone else, or it was a tricky client. You've got to observe that as a boss and a leader. So I think it's so important. So attitude is everything, guys. Attitude is absolutely everything. I'm certainly very switched on to it all the time. I will, even if I grab a coffee in Costa, I spot immediately people with good attitudes, and you look at them and you go, wow, I'd love to recruit you for something because you just got a great attitude. But equally, you spot people with bad attitudes, the people you walk in and they don't want to serve you, they mumble, they grumble, they don't speak. It's everywhere in day-to-day life. Attitudes are absolutely everywhere when you're just switched on to it, and you want to be paying attention to it the whole time, because details matter with attitude. So I hope that's been useful. That's a nice, sweet, short, to the point episode on attitudes. If you like this podcast, if you found value from it, if you could, please, it would really help if you could share it, take a screenshot if you're listening to it, whatever you're listening to on, and share it on Instagram and tag me in it at Dean Barton Real. I will reshare it to my stories as well, so you might get some exposure for your own business. But it just helps get in the exposure and people listening to it. I do this for free, and it would just be really helpful for me doing it. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bosh.